With those three talks, you got a panoramic view from industry, from education, and from a policymaker earlier, and now in business. We started, in the first to talk, we said, is it about hiring and training, or training and hiring? Mr. Kulkarni's last slide, which is NEET, were you able to read it? NEET stands for neither in education, nor in employment, nor in training. And it shows in India, almost 30% of people are neither in education, nor in employment, nor in training. So you do have issues that today our country faces. That same issue is going to become mammoth, because we know that 50 plus will be 50% in 2050, if you can remember that number. And there's an urgent need for us to be able to do something about it. I'm going to open it up to the audience now. If you have noted your questions, we'll just restrict ourselves to just 3 questions, one directed at each of the speakers. So who wants to go with the first one? Yes, sir, but you'll have to be brief, sir. Yes, sir. Not more than 5 words, sir, for you. Yes, sir. Go on.
What will be the corporate's will to phase out electronics manufacturing starting from villages and moving on to tier 3 or tier 2 towns and ceasing there, in order to balance the ratio of 49, 37, 14, so that the migration can be balanced, so that the food supplies could be balanced and work life could also be balanced. What's your take on that?
Thank you, sir. That will be enough. Yes, sir. Please answer. Oh, essentially, I think you were talking about the lopsided nature of GDP growth and labor.
Yeah, I got a sense of your question in terms of, is it only top heavy in terms of the top 8 metros where everything is happening in the digital world? Would that be a right paraphrasing of your question?
Yeah. Take the digital manufacturing in electronics to villages, then move up to the tier 3 or tier 2. Start from the roots, so that a lot of our problems that we face in the urban areas could be solved.
Yeah, so it's a valid aspiration, but it has to be backed up with reality. So today if somebody wants to say, I want to make a chip manufacturing in India, is it a reality? We definitely want it. We miss the bus. Why? Because a chip manufacturing company also has stakeholders. It needs to be answerable for a reliable, robust, sustainable operation. And if you don't have good quality power, good, easily available land, or an ecosystem which supports a strong supply of skilled manpower, why would anybody look at India? Forget rural areas. I would like to actually give a slightly different perspective. I always believe in a cup being half full and not half empty. I think with what is happening in digital India, just forget the manufacturing part. But with connectivity, we are finding people are more motivated to stay in their place, which could be a tier 2 town. The compulsion to really move into a metro like a Bombay or a Bangalore or a Delhi need not be as compulsive. Right? The quality of life is definitely much better there. And if digital connectivity provides for some of the services, some of the quality of life in terms of consuming content, talk of Netflix now being available with a whole suite of movies, the electronic media has already touched a lot of tier 2, tier 3 towns. People can afford to stay in smaller towns and still enjoy the fruits of labor and the benefits of a smaller town. Talking about manufacturing being the lead role to prevent migration, I think is not entirely logical, because there are other aspects which come into play for it to become a reality. I hope I answered your question at least partly.
Sir, my best appreciation for all the speakers. My question is to Professor Rajendran. See, you have shown one statistic, 49% agriculture, 30% in service sector, and industry is only 20%. And you emphasize that this 20% has to be improved. But looking at these statistics, if this 20% has to be increased, means one has to come from the agriculture sector. But already we are very much problem that cultivable areas are shrinking, whether the agriculture sector should come down and this industry sector should improve. That is the meaning. One more question, it is not question, my submission. From yesterday, all speakers are telling 20% of the engineers are employable. I do not know why we are looking at only engineers. We should look at very holistic perspective. We should look at everybody. And this 20%, I feel it is the very highest employment rate, what we are seeing. These are all creamy. And in my view, it will go even 5% if we take all the college graduates. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
I will answer the first question and leave the second to one of my co-panelists here. See, when I talk of 20% industry having to go up, it does not mean that we have to sacrifice agriculture. Even in agriculture, our productivity is abysmal in India. If you look at productivity norms of crops, compare it to Israel, for example, it's 8x, 10x worse off. All I'm saying is that to create jobs, and world is becoming digital. There's a lot of technology infusion happening into the world. That's why I gave that example of NID, National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad. It is being able to imbibe technology, make it relevant for the local there, and that is again manufacturing. If there's an entrepreneur there who's doing retrofitting of cycles for a village of about 500, 600 people, what's wrong with that? That's manufacturing, right? He may be rooted in an agricultural background, but he's getting into manufacturing. That counts for industry. And I'm just going with the logic of what has happened as a track record from the tigers of the East. Whether you look at Taiwan, you look at Thailand, you look at China more recently, or Korea, they have moved up the ladder. And you can look at the lifestyle living there, it definitely is much better. At least your basics of food, shelter, clothing is guaranteed, which is still not a given in India. Right? That's a perspective when I said we have to get the 20% of industry moving up, not by sacrificing agriculture, get that going, but you have to get this for much better jobs.
Sir, would you
second
like
question.
to take?
I just want to clarify a point. I think it needs to, when yesterday's panelists or today talked about 20%, I don't think they said that 20% are employed. What they were mentioning is according to employers, only 20% of those produced by education institutions can be employed. They have the employability skills. Many more may be employed because you need people. But then the argument is that they don't have the employability skills. And I agree with you. If you are going to talk about non-engineering graduates, the percentage of that skills may be significantly lower. If I could just take half a minute on that. Some years back, I was sharing a platform like this with the IIT director. And I said, based on a survey I had done, that how many students from the liberal arts who complete their undergraduation and post-graduation pursue a profession linked to liberal arts. And I had done a study from 82 to 95. And I said that not more than 40% of them take up a job which is linked to what they studied in college. 40%. The IIT director immediately stood up and said, Dr. Shastri, you are lucky, because in the case of my IIT now it is less than 40%. Which is less than 40% of IIT graduates take up a profession which is linked to what they studied in IIT. But then I countered a point and said, that may be true, but then the skill set that they acquire as part of their education allows them to make that transition. Whereas the skill set that a non-engineering graduate, a student who does a liberal arts course or a pure science course sometimes, does not get that skill set which would allow them to make that change also. So I thought that small clarification on what does that 20% involve, I think needs to be.
The last question, please. It is directed at either Dr. Shastri or Dr. Vivek Kulkarni.
My question is to Dr. Shastri. Usually I have been teaching since last 10 years, and I have found that when we talk about students, we have seen that, a student does his graduation, maybe engineering, then he goes for an MBA, he has done MBA in maybe marketing management, and then finally, or finance management, and then he joins a bank as a branch manager. So sir, don't you think that there is, we need to streamline the recruitment system, wherein we need to understand that is he really from a background? For example, we have seen students who have done BCom and they are working as clerks in some companies. and wherein a person who is technically skilled is doing a banking operation for which he may not be meant for. So I think we require, a kind of screening technique wherein we need to counsel people that, you are meant for this kind of job, and if you come from this background, then you come and join a bank. If you come from a technical background, go to a manufacturing company and work there. So I think that we need to streamline this aspect wherein we can, that will help us a lot in developing the nation as well. Thank you, sir.
I would fully appreciate and support the spirit of the point that you made. I think it's fully valid. I'd like you to, and I think it's something which needs to be looked at. I'll just take a step backward. Today, when young boys and girls enter higher education, more often than not, they enter higher education because of a bandwagon effect. My friends went there, so I'm going there. More often than not, they enter higher education stream because of parental pressures. The father and mother say, both of us are engineers, how do we face the world if you don't go to engineering? More often than not, they take a stream because of societal pressures. That's the exact point I was making. Now, can higher education, and that's the need of the hour, give a young person the capacity, the strength, the courage, and the power to be able to go into that stream of learning which he or she thinks that they are best suited for, rather than succumbing to social norms, peer pressure, and the like. I don't know if Kulkarni sir faced this or whether Rajendra sir faced this. Today you meet engineers who are studying in 6th semester, 7th semester. Many of them will tell you, I don't think I came to the right place. But then it's too late. You go through the motions of completing your degree and then decide where you want to go. In the profession that Kulkarni sir took, from 1985 onward, 1984 onwards, invariably the first 17 of the 20 ranks in All India Civil Service recruitment, the exam, first 17 of the 20 ranks are professionals. Engineers, doctors, architects, and the like, who decide to go into administration. And I must dare say, administration has greatly benefited because of that skill set that is coming. But there is a counter argument which I don't know if Kulkarni sir will get upset I'm raising, which is, then what happens to that engineering skill set you learnt in IIT, which you never made any use of formally as part of your, but today sir is using that, having got back into business. So yes, I think one of the priorities we must have today is sensitizing, not youth, sensitizing society to this. In fact, our counseling center in the university has an important statement. Talk to the child, counsel the parents. Because the child doesn't require counseling. It's the parents who require counseling. Now, I think unless you are able to deal with that, you are going to land up with a situation where somebody pursues higher education because of all these pressures, and at the end of the day asks herself, did I really want to be?
Permit me to add a few points on this. Technology people joining banking, having come from Reserve Bank and with the banking environmental experience, actual experience, today we need only technically qualified bankers in the banking industry to work, even in Reserve Bank, even policy making, even in regulatory areas, monetary policy. Because without the technical knowledge, engineering knowledge, they find it very difficult to operate the policy or operational matters issues, even in the banking, branch banking and all that, day-to-day operation. Everything has been technology oriented and under the backbone. And they are ordinary people just coming from the ordinary background of commerce or any other with the banking diploma cannot work in a bank today. They will find it extremely difficult even to handle products and services in a branch and to explain and handle the customers, including credit appraisal. So we need multiple skill sets suited to the particular sector. which also will be necessary in addition to technology knowledge, technical knowledge. And another one small addition I would like to make, that in most of the banking industry we find here, the technology is being implemented in phases. We are in the, not in the fully technology oriented banks we have in operations today, although we have reached that stage. We need people with the technology knowledge to help us implement banking policies and the operational things in the banks. That's why the multiple skill sets are necessary.
While agreeing with sir, I just would have a small disagreement on one point, which is I would hesitate to call any of my students ordinary. To say that certain professional streams are ordinary and certain are not ordinary, I would hesitate to do that because I think everybody is extraordinary in their own way. And I think it's if you say certain streams are non-technical and don't have the skills, I think for me that's a failure on our part to be able to equip them with those skills. And that I think needs to be what needs to be addressed today. I think we need to start our dialogue on higher education by believing that everybody who enters higher education has the potential to excel in what he or she is doing. But we as a system, are we providing that opportunity? For me, that's the challenge. And sir,
I just wanted to add one point. It's a very relevant point, but I think it gets addressed when you look at the aspects of need and desire. Right? Need, as he rightly said, you have a lot of pressure from societal, could be parents, peer pressure where you get into a group. Desire, you want to do something, you get into that fold, and then find opportunities are not there. I think the missing link is proper mentorship or coaching. Right? Today, the opportunities for the youth are phenomenally high. Right? When I talk to my parents, the job opportunity was always join a government, become a doctor or an engineer, finished. In my era, it was slightly better, but if I look at my kids, it's enormous. I mean, yesterday I was talking to somebody who said there is a new science engineering in logistics. I mean, I always thought logistics was humdrum of moving goods from here to here at the lowest cost. He said there is so much of science and logistics, there are some courses being offered where people have taken it and then gone into that profession because of pure passion, have been able to deliver something like 8x, I'm not exaggerating, 8x benefit to the logistics cost. Right? So the opportunities are great. I think it requires that mentorship for people to understand these are the fields you can go into and this is the real world.
So I guess whichever way you look at it, training becomes very important because you don't know what the source is. At the end of the day, you need somebody to be employed. And in that context, I would like to conclude this session by asking Mr. Vivek Kulkarni an IT question. Narayana Murthy in today's paper says, we have to send 10,000 people to the US to do PhDs. And that will cost over 5 years some 5 billion. Can you make anything out of what he's trying to say based on this conversation we're having on education and employment and empowerment?
No, I think I agree with Mr. Narayan Murthy's statement because what happens is, in India we have a lot of PhDs, lots of people get PhDs, and I don't know whether there are PhDs in social sciences, there are PhD in engineering sciences, PhDs in medical sciences. Usually engineering and medical sciences are a little bit stricter, I would put it. But social sciences, you don't know what is the worth of that PhD. I recently tried to hire a PhD in some agricultural something. They have got a PhD from a university in Andhra Pradesh. When I looked at that, and if you think this is a PhD, then there is an issue. So I think what he is trying to, because finally we all prefer to take a career where the job opportunity is there. Okay, that is number one. At the same time, we should have some interest in what we are learning. Both are required, because otherwise, and quite often at an young age, sometimes we are also unable to decide that. So sometimes people study something and then completely change and go for something else, perfectly all right. And I think when we were there, we didn't have that choice. Now the youngsters do have that choice, because you can be a freelancer and you can start working right away. You are saying you don't have to wait for your job, to get over, graduation to get over. Right now you get into Elance and put your resume and do the work directly if you want. So nothing stops you from doing that. So a lot of 53 million people who are working in US in that fashion, there is no job they themselves work. So you do have that choice, and if you like doing something, like suppose graphic design, and you become an expert in graphic design, that's fine. And what you learn, I would say, what you learn from your graduation, interacting with the students, interacting with the faculty, is some kind of a general knowledge, a framework for you to succeed in future. I think in case you don't do exactly that, it doesn't really bother me much, because I'm sure many will be there who will do in that category. You will do in what you like most. So I think Narayan Murthy's statement is only to say let's have some quality PhD in India. I think that is most welcome.
Yes, with that we would conclude, and I'll invite Madhavi ma'am to do the rest of the proceedings.
I think we've had quite an elaborate discussion, and it has been very enlightening. So it's time to thank all those dignitaries who have taken their time and accepted our invitation and come on this day to create this panel and give us the diversified viewpoints which have made what it has become. So I'll quickly request our Director Dr. B.A. Vasu to felicitate each of our panelists and the moderator. So please. Vivek Kulkarni sir. Rajendran sir. Sandeep Shastri sir. And Matthew sir for the moderation. Thank you all dignitaries. We close the session.